Hey guys, my name's Adam Hudson. I'm the founder of Reliable Education, and I teach people how to build reliable businesses on the Amazon platform. And today I'm on Dov Baron's Loyalty and Leadership program, and we're going to be talking about how to, bring authentic leadership into your business. I'll be sharing some of my ideas around how we've done that in my companies and how that social cause and that social giving has had a real impact on the business. And we're also going to touch on why Amazon is such a great opportunity right now. So stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to take a look at really an insider look at leadership and how to survive in the retail business. If you're a new listener, new viewer, strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and with over 2 million downloads and plays, we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Remember, we always need your help in staying relevant, so get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you are a CEO, C-suite leader, sales leader, entrepreneur, leader in any capacity, you know that even the ones of us who were the most uncomfortable with the idea of giving our credit card online are now making fewer and fewer purchases in physical retail stores. And by that more and more of us are doing it without leaving our home. We're purchasing all the time online. So the question is, if you're in the business of retail, in the retail world, not only can you survive, but can you thrive? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. Our guest today is Adam Hudson. He's a serial entrepreneur. No, he's not from Kellogg's. That's just what he is. He's a serial entrepreneur, not a serial murderer, but a serial entrepreneur who's built several multi-million-dollar companies in both Australia and the United States, including a highly successful animation company in Hollywood. Adam has been featured on the Tracy Show, Sky Business News, Eventual Millionaire podcast, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, webretailer.com, Inc.com, and Newsweek. He currently owns an Amazon marketing service firm, a houseware brand that sells its products exclusively through Amazon into over 30 countries. He also runs and owns Reliable Education, an online education company which teaches students across the globe how to build profitable Amazon businesses which generate reliable income streams. So, he's also the author of a brand new best-selling book entitled Primed. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome, giving a good old good eye, mate, to Adam Hudson.
That is a great intro, John. Thank you.
I'm just thinking, you were just showing me out the window there, and I'm just realizing that it's coming towards the end of winter where you are.
It is where I live, as your viewers might actually enjoy this view. It might warm them up. This is where we are this morning. This is my home in Australia on the beach. It's end of winter, but it's absolutely stunning here year round. So it's one of the reasons I live here. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so Adam is based in Queensland, which I have had the pleasure of spending some time in when I lived in Aussie, and it's a rather beautiful place. And like you said, I've been there in the winter, and it's not too shabby even in the winter. So pretty nice. And you're obviously right on the beach there. So I'm glad you're managing to suffer for all of us. Thank you for that. You're such a brave leader. So I want to jump in here because you recently, one of the things I feel very proud of that is on my resume is that I got to speak at the UN Not last year, yeah. So in 2016, I got to speak at the UN. And you recently spoke at the UN on the subject of social entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit about that before we go into anything else. How you got invited and what the hell it was like.
Yeah, so fundamentally the talk was about my belief that it's no longer just a nice thing to do in business to embed some sort of social cause into your business. I actually believe it's economically intelligent to do it as well. I think these days, the buy-in from your customers, from your employees, and all of that is considerably higher when you do it. Mm-hmm. It says a lot about you as a brand and a company, the space from which you operate, if it's done authentically. And I'm absolutely convinced in our business it's resulted in more income, less refunds, employee happiness and engagement being higher. And importantly, the type of work we do, we just took 30 of our students in our education business up to do the charity work on the ground. And we're taking another 60 up in November. So I spoke to a small group of business leaders there about how I'd implemented this social cause, and we do that, and we also do microloans through Kiva. So I just talked about the direct impact that we've seen financially and otherwise as a result of that giving, and it was really quite it's quite amazing when you get there and you get the United Nations pass at the entry and you realise the gravity of that environment. It's quite a special place, and it was a real buzz to do it.
How did that come about? How did you end up getting invited to that?
I have a publicist who gets me onto shows like the Brian Tracy show and all sorts of things. Says, "Hey, we've got."
Hey, they got you on Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty.
I know he got us here. I mean, we get the very best as
everything
a result.
else. My friend is like UN. I'm sorry, my friend. You got on the Dov Barron show. Conflict. I've got to go on the Dov show.
Exactly. So yeah, it'll definitely be on my intro reel from now on. But yeah, basically the opportunity is at short notice. I was in New York to be on a show called Times Square Today, which I was there anyway, and it was 2 days later. So I went over to do that, and it was fabulous. Yeah, really good.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I think that this, it's important that you spoke about this, because I think that this is, there's a rise in the understanding of the need for social enterprise, for doing things that are about the greater good, but it's on one side of it's a PR thing, and on the other side of it is, well, we're not allowed to talk about profit, and you seem to be very much about both, in that this is about something that really matters. It is good PR and it's good profit.
Yeah, and I think we need to sort of evolve past that. I mean, I think for smaller businesses, the reality is we live and die on our ability to make money. For a big corporate, it's one thing, but if you're not making money, in small business, it's hard enough. So hard to make money in small business. So it has to economically stack. Otherwise, we can all talk about it and it's all warm and fuzzy, but it has to work. And there's all that other side of it as well. I honestly said to people when I got back from this last trip to Indonesia, it was the best thing I've done as an adult in my life, which is I've done all these fancy holidays, but hands down was the most fulfilling, rewarding thing that I've done as an adult. There's 400 Indonesians walking around today that were blind a month ago because of the work that we did directly, and there's no replacing, Dov, the emotional shift, because so much of entrepreneurship is management of stress and all that. When you're having a bad day, there is nothing that motivates you to do something more than the memory of a daughter coming up to you or a son coming up to you and grabbing your hand and saying thank you in the best way they can because we just did surgery on their mother or their grandfather who wasn't able to work or contribute to a community. And we had that over and over and over with hundreds of people.
Is there one of those that really stood out for you? Is one of those experiences that really stood out?
One was actually a little boy up there. He was probably 8 or 9 years old. He lost his eye in a fishing hook accident and it got caught and ripped his eye out. And he had to be pulled out of school because the kids teased him and everything. And while we were there, we were present when we put in his artificial eye, because we do about 20 artificial eyes per township that we sponsor as well. So we watched this little kid sit down, and his mum was sitting there, and he put the eye in and then held the mirror up, and his face just lit up like, I'm back in business. I look completely normal. The eye moved when he moved this because the muscles in his eyelid. Just seeing this kid in a moment regain his confidence was just, all of us that were there were just crying. It was just such an emotion. There was many like that, watching a grandparent get let in by their little 4-year-old granddaughter to the truck, and going in for the surgery. It was 2 or 3 days of just being on a high, just so humbling. Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's very powerful, very moving. How do you think that, because you mentioned it right at the beginning there, how do you think it's impacted the bottom line of doing business?
Well, we sell 2 products in our education company. We have an online course which sells for about $2,500 US, and then we have a higher level sort of coaching program. And we took up our higher level coaching clients to this past one. And of course, at the next time we open it up, we'll have testimonials from those people who joined a high level business coaching program. And several of those people came up to me. It was only a couple of months into a 12-month program, and they came to Bali with us, and they looked at me and hugged me and said, Adam, I don't care what you teach us for the rest of the 12 months. We have had more than our money's worth just from this experience, and we didn't even talk about business. So you have this authentic, genuine endorsement of the experience that we fundamentally are selling. And those things from a commercial point of view are priceless. To have an authentic, genuinely happy customer has to result in more sales. So this idea that, success and doing good are mutually exclusive, in my view, couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, it's fascinating because in the old school of business, we really have had those two things separately. It's about the profit, and when we've got some money left over, then we'll do some things. And of course, you've got to make profit. You've got to make money. That's why you're in business.
Of course.
But understanding that doing good actually makes you do better is a wild concept that I think a lot of old school leaders really still struggle with, that idea. But obviously you're seeing tremendous results with it, which is fabulous. And what an experience to have, to watch that little boy, his confidence come back. Just alone, right? It was amazing. The impact of that over the course of his life, when you think about how important those formative years are in a child. So it was pretty. Yeah, there's lots of experiences like that, and it was amazing. I'm sure. Now, one of your companies you have is Reliable Education, which is where you actually train people how to sell things through Amazon and actually turn it into a real business. And I want to talk more about that in a moment. But one of the things that I really liked about what you're doing with that was it seems that in some ways you've taken a leaf out of the book of Tony Hsieh, one of my favorite leaders, when he did with the Zappos thing, which is that he openly paid people to go away. You don't do that, but you openly reject 7% of the people who want to buy your course, who actually try and buy your course. Tell us about why you would turn away 7%. I mean, if I went to a big company, I don't know, like a multinational or a Fortune 100 and said, listen, I want you to turn away 7% of the business that's coming your way, I think that they would probably buy me a big cross and want to nail me to it. So tell us about how you came to that idea and why you decided to do that.
Well, first of all, Tony Hsieh is one of my favorite guys as well. A couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to tour his apartment in downtown Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah?
And that act alone, the fact he opens his home every day to strangers to go and see his vision, was just so authentic. And he's a billionaire, basically allowing strangers to go through once a day. I don't think he still does it, but he did then. But on to your point, we waded into, when we started Reliable Education, we basically were going into one of the seediest, sharkiest businesses in the world, selling how to make money on the internet courses. I think you and I talked about this in the pre-interview. It's not lost on me how sketchy this industry is, and how there's this huge conflict between, it's far more profitable in most cases to sell the idea of or the concept of making money than to do the thing that you're teaching other people to do. So it's a really fine line. It was not as clear as day to those with moral compass, but it's a really seedy space, and there are a few good people in that space though. Ramit Sethi is one of the guys that we first heard about when people bought his course. He would ask them, or he'd have his team ask them, how did you fund this program? And if they said they put it on a credit card because they didn't have the money, he would refund them because he was fundamentally against putting people further into debt. Right. And my CEO and I said, this is a fantastic idea. And so we actually started doing, when somebody buys the course, we then do a live onboarding call for 30 minutes with one of our team. And they ask that question, how did you pay for it? And do you have money saved to buy products? Because fundamentally, we're teaching people private labeling. So you have to be able to buy inventory out of China or somewhere. So if they've got it on their credit card, they have no savings. They're paying for a course they can't execute on. They can't buy the inventory. So we say, listen, we're going to refund you now, but come back in 6 to 12 months when you've saved up another $10,000 or $5,000 to $10,000 on top of the course fee. And people are shocked. They're like, but I've already paid. I'm like, I know you've already paid, but we don't want anyone in the community that can't do what we're going to teach them because we don't want the financial stress. And then there's another 3% that don't pass. We have one rule in business, and I learned this from a very successful guy called Cameron Sinclair, who's who builds homes for homeless people all over the world, and he'll probably win the Nobel Prize one day. And he said, I only have one rule for business, and that is it's a no arsehole policy. So I don't be an arsehole, I don't take money from arseholes, and I don't work with arseholes. And we adopted that as well. So sometimes in the onboarding, you get people who are really arrogant or people who are wanting to get rich quick, and it's plain as day, and they ask all the wrong questions, and you can just see they're just at the wrong phase of their life for this. They're either too young or too inexperienced, or they're just dicks. And so we say, look, we just don't think you're a fit for our community, and we fish those people out. And as a result of all that, we have this community that, when people buy our course, they're shocked that we provide a real community support, which in our Facebook group, I'm there, Evan. I've just finished a national tour around the country where we just do meetups. We just put drinks on and bring everyone together. And the only reason we're able to do that is because we've been so honest with people on the way in the door, and we've been an actual guardian for our community, that we actually have a community of good people that are in it for the right reasons, that can afford to be there, that aren't under financial duress as a result of us. And we've got this amazing community, and everything about our community works so much better. Like our refund rate is like less than 5% of an online course, which is just ridiculous. Usually it's like 30%.
Exactly.
So we've got all those things right, and the business is just growing and thriving as a result.
See, this is why I wanted to have you on the show, because when we talked in the pre-chat, at first I was like, this is so not a fit. Like, we're talking about leadership. This guy's flogging a course on how to make money online. I mean, couldn't be further off base, And the initial reaction at first was like, absolutely not. Because I know some of those guys. I've actually met them. And shady is an undertone. It's an understatement. So, but the interesting thing about this is that you're involved in a world that is very much, like I said, a little bit shady and seen that way, and you're approaching it from a completely new style of leadership with a great deal of integrity. There's got to be some splashback on that. You got to be getting a bit of grief about that from the powers that be in that world. Because it's the online marketing world, as people may or may not know, is a pretty ancestral world. I know some of those guys, and I know you do personally. So tell us a bit about what that's like to do that kind of leadership.
Yeah, so it's a great question, Dov, and you are right. It's unfortunately an industry that's flooded with insincerity and bullshit, and people are absolutely petrified to tell the absolute naked truth, that it's hard and so on. And we struggled, and still sometimes do struggle, to find affiliates. So usually what happens is these little clusters of people with really big lists, and they cross-promote each other's stuff.
Of course.
It's like a little boys' club with big lists and lots of power. And we were sort of locked out for a while, and in some circles we still are, because we tell people that we have our policy where we'll refund them if they this, and we tell them it will take. Our fastest students don't go live with a product on Amazon for 6 months, and the average is 9 to 12. So it takes 6 to 12 months to actually just simply go live, and then we tell them there's like a 1 or 2 month period of establishing your Amazon listing. So it could be 8 to 14 months before you start making sales, and it won't be until the end of the first year that the second year that you'll probably start making any kind of real profit, which you won't be able to spend, because the profits you'll want to reinvest into growing more inventory base.
Oh, there's something wrong with this right off the bat. This truth telling shit. This is completely out of alignment. What the hell are you doing? You're going to ruin the internet marketing world.
They're like, nobody will buy this. You've got to tell them that they can make money in 3 months or less.
Yeah.
And you can't on Amazon. I'm sorry, you can, but you'll be selling crap that you never really researched, and it'll be such a short-term play. So we tell people it's that kind of process, that it should be a side hustle for 3 to 5 years, at the end of which you've got a really nice business that's built and established on fundamentally good business principles. Because 3 to 5 years at the end of the day to escape the rat race is short. But they're just so afraid of actually telling people the truth. But I sort of believe, and my CEO believes, that the market, and the reason we got into it is that we see no abatement in the appetite for knowledge. People need solutions. People are in a really bad money deal. They're in jobs, giving away their lives and the best of their waking hours to a job they hate at the expense of their families and their health and everything. So there's this huge, massive demand, and I find it absolutely ironic that people who are supposed to be teaching abundance mentality approach it with such a poverty mentality that there's so few people out there that can actually handle the truth. I mean, people have been beaten up in life, and when they hear truth, they know truth, and we haven't. It's been quite the opposite. We've built a multi-million-dollar business in 2 years from a zero scratch start by just telling the freaking truth.
It's a wild concept. I love it. It's fabulous.
Who thought?
So, as you know, this is a leadership show, so I want to talk about what I call the great white elephant, which is politically, corporately, in any form you want to address. What do you see as the current state of leadership today?
It's an interesting question. I think I think in a word, I would say fragmented. There's a real there's an appetite for change in the air, and leaders don't know what to do. Like Donald Trump, for example, not to wade into politics too much, but he really shook the foundations of a lot of people's view of the world. Like, it just demonstrated how tired of the old model people are.
Yeah.
And here in Australia, for example, we're seeing politicians now trying to adopt the Donald Trump way because it's successful politically, at least in the short term. So I think people are like really frustrated with insincerity, or what they perceive as insincerity, no matter what you think of Trump and the irony of what I'm saying right now be. But they're just tired of this insincere BS. They're ready for authentic leadership, people admitting their mistakes and their flaws and their shortcomings and saying I don't know when I don't know, instead of glossing over with some bullshit answer. So I think leaders that are authentic, people like Tony Hsieh, for example, is just such an inspirational next generation of leader that, making $800 or $900 million exit and then opening up his own home at the Ogden Hotel in downtown Las Vegas to strangers to go through so they can see his vision for regenerating a otherwise gentrified area of town, and his vision and his passion. He's currently living in an Airstream caravan in one of his developments in downtown Las Vegas,
yeah.
and sitting around a campfire at night with other normal people. This kind of engagement is not only more fulfilling but more appealing and rewarding to the modern person, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a very interesting thing because. I think you're absolutely right that people wanted different, and I wrote an article quite a while ago and I talked about Trump and Obama and how similar they were in the sense of that people who voted for them wanted something different. They wanted change, and that's what they both wanted. What those voters wanted. I don't know that they got it with either of them in the way that they would have wanted it, but they did get different. But it is that calling for something that is a little more authentic, a little more real. I mean, in this book, my last book, Fiercely Loyal, I talked about Bob Hawke and him winning the election when I lived there in the 80s, and talked about how I don't know if you're probably too young to remember this, but I remember him winning that election when Andrew Peacock was about to kill him. There was no way in the world he could win. He'd been a bad prime minister, and he openly admitted that his daughters were drug addicts, and he came out, and Bob Hawke, that guy's guy, the guy who could outdrink and outfight anybody, had a tear in his eye and said, I've done a crappy job, and I'm sorry. My kids were going where they were going. And he won the election. And that for them, it's cited in that book as a case study, because that's how much we crave authenticity, and we crave it even when it's destructive. So we had, I'm trying to remember his name now, it just flashed in my mind, the mayor of Toronto, who was caught smoking crack in a crack pipe and said, no, I didn't. And denied it. It was on film. 5 months later, he admits it, and he wins the election, because that's how much we crave authenticity. Even when it's bullshit, it's better than the nicely wrapped version of what we've been sold, whether it's in politics or whether it's in internet marketing. And in internet marketing, the wrapping has been, this is quick, this is easy, and you'll make money within 3 months. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you didn't go to that makes you the Bob Hawke, makes you even the Donald Trump of saying, no, we're not doing what everybody else did. And I think that, you've found your time, because I think that the guys are right. I don't think you'd have died a death 5-6 years ago. People are going,
you can't compete with, back in the day, you couldn't compete with the guys that were doing the get-rich-quick stuff, and they're still doing it, even in our space. There's big players that are still doing it because it still works to the less educated or the people that are just not quite in touch with themselves. But I know I have a sort of sense of sometimes I have stuff that goes wrong in my own Amazon business where I've made a mistake. I decided to go with a product that I knew in my heart of heart wasn't up to the quality standard that my customer would expect, but I did it anyway. Or I didn't pay attention because I was too busy doing other stuff, and then something happens in the packaging or something. So I will do a video post to our community and the headline will be, here's how I completely screwed up today. And I just write it, and I can feel in my stomach getting nervous, like, oh my God, I'm just so vulnerable right now. I'm supposed to be this leader. And then every time I feel that feeling now, I go, this is going to be a really high engagement post. And by far, the most engagement ever are the videos where I say, here's how I screwed up. Here's how I made a mistake. Because people fundamentally are good. People want to help somebody who's in a vulnerable position. And people trust people that are actually not hiding their down days. And I did a video a few months ago where I got home from the office in LA, and I was sitting in my car and I was exhausted. I looked like crap. I'd been up from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. I was just about to go inside, and I thought, this is actually a moment where I want to share with my community what an entrepreneur looks like at the end of a 14-hour day. I said, guys, I'm wrecked. I'm tired. I'm sitting here in the dark. I'm about to go and crash inside, but this is what entrepreneurship looks like at the coalface. It is freaking hard some days, and I've just had a shit day, but it's better than actually being in a job. So I just wanted you to see me at my worst and have a good night. And people just loved it,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I did a video recently. It was called Gary Vaynerchuk Lies. And I started off by saying, listen, you should know I'm a Gary Vaynerchuk fan. But I said, I'm also kind of a fan of the Buddha and of Jesus and maybe even Mohammed. I said, but I'm not a big fan of the interpretation of those things. And I said, it's the same thing with Gary Vaynerchuk. He talks a lot about hustle, and most people think hustle is watching 5 hours of Gary Vaynerchuk. They think that hustle is about just working your nuts off, but actually not enjoying anything. And so there's a glamorized version of everything that's got nothing to do with the reality of the thing. And I love that you did that video to say, here I am. I'm like a wet rag at the end of the day. I'm knackered and finished, but it's still better than going to work for some crappy boss in a job I don't like. And I love that because, again, that's that authenticity, and it's such a need. We're desperate for it.
Totally.
So you've come from this various background, like I said, serial entrepreneur. You had animation company. You've done a lot of different things. What was there a turning point? Was there a turning point in your leadership or your business philosophy?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, I did quite well in my late 20s, early 30s, and then I lost it all, through a series of bad things that happened. 2008 occurred, and I'd just taken done a small public float of my company, just months before the 2008 crash. And I had, lots and lots of wealth tied up in the company that was now almost worthless, and nobody would buy what it was now worth anyway. I had to sell my property portfolio at fire sale prices to lend money to the company to get it through. And it set me back. I worked there for two or three years after that, trying to save the business, which we did in the end to save the money that my friends and family had invested. And then I went through this really hard time. So I was up, and then I went right down, and then had to earn it all back. But I think in recent times, one of the big turning points was I walked out of my animation company in Hollywood about 3 years ago. And, from the outside, I was, 3 companies that were successful. Everything was good. And then I was walking down Sunset Boulevard, and the street started to feel like it was spinning, and I just didn't feel very well. And I said to the guy I was with, who was one of my employees, I said, I don't feel very good. I need to go back to the office. And the next thing I know, I had ER people over me rushing me to the hospital, and my heart rate was spiking through the roof. And I'd had my first ever serious extreme panic attack. I'd never had one before. I thought I was dying. Right. And I also had vertigo at the same time. And it was basically I'd been ignoring my body and ignoring the amount of stress I was dealing with, living in a foreign country, running 3 companies, and all sorts of stuff going in my life, which, as most men do, we ignore all that, just think we're right, we don't talk about it. And my body just said, that's enough. If you're not going to pay attention, we're going to shut you down. And so I went to Bali, and I did a yoga meditation retreat, and I have a guy there who's I call him my happiness mentor, and he sat me down, and on one side he said, on this side of the piece of paper, Adam, write down moments in your life recently where you were experiencing true joy, when you just caught yourself being joyous. And I sat there for 5 minutes. I couldn't think of a single thing. And eventually I came up with one, which was being on a jet ski at full speed here on the Gold Coast. Another was coming out of the ocean after a swim. Those little moments in my life, I was actually not thinking about anything. I was just happy. And then on this side of the paper, he said, write down how you spend your day. And I looked at the 2 lists, and he said, so the key here is to make the lists look a little bit more like the joy list. And it was so simple but so powerful. And then we talked about what it takes to experience joy, and it really got down to just gratitude, just slowing down and learning to be grateful. Let's start with the basics, the fact we can see each other, or we can breathe clean air, and have food on our table. And he took me through this extreme gratitude exercise, which was just really eye-opening. And I realized right there and then on this little island off Bali that I really, if I just sold my animation company, could have everything I ever really wanted. So I rang the brokers in LA and said, you know what, they've been trying to get me to sell the business. They had buyers for it. And I said, it's for sale. Here's the price. Within a week, I had 2 written offers for more than I had asked. I sold it in my board shorts on that little island, signed the contract, went back to America, got paid, and then bought this place where I'm sitting in now with some of the proceeds, and just said, that's it. I'm making happiness a priority. And so from that moment on, I said, whatever I do in business going forward, I'm never, ever, ever going back to that feeling of unhappiness or stress. It's just not worth it. And I already have everything that I could possibly want. And it's not because I have hundreds of millions of dollars or anything like that. I just want what I have. And I want to feel in business that I want my customers to actually be authentically happy. I want to feel I'm making a difference because I am. And I don't want the weight of this creating an expectation up here and delivering something here. I want to create an expectation here and deliver here. And since I've done that in the last 3 years, my businesses have blossomed. I'm happier and healthier. And the irony is everything's coming much easier now than it ever has previously. And I'm
That's
happier.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. That's really great insight. Tell us what it, because I think it's important for people to know. Tell us what it was like at the bottom end of that dip.
Oh, in LA with the panic attacks and the anxiety and the was horrible. I mean, I never really understood or had genuine compassion for people who suffer with mental illness, and that's what it is.
Of course.
And I went through a real understanding and appreciation for mental health being equally important to physical health, especially in the US and the UK and Australia, where there's very strong concept of physical health. We all walk or go to the gym or eat well. But what about our mental health? Is it being treated in the same way? So I struggled with serious panic attacks for 2 years. I was hospitalized twice in that time for the most ridiculous of, like I got to a point though when I first moved back to Australia where I was still suffering. I'd go for a beach walk, which I do every morning here pretty much, and I would walk, half a kilometre down the beach, and all of a sudden I panicked because I felt, what if I can't get back to my house? And I was 500 metres from my house, clear blue, beautiful day on the ocean, and I have a full-on panic attack.
Right.
It's just a horrible experience to go through. So I think that's a real, when you have mental health challenges, it's a real problem. And also I've had, other dark challenges of just, having a life like my business life is so dominant. Currently I'm single. It's easy to go, this guy's, got successful businesses and a beautiful home and all those things, but I'm single. There's areas of my life where I'm not as fulfilled as I would like to be. So I'm working on that at the moment. So there's always areas that you need to sort of get together.
Yeah, and again, it's part of that. You and I talked about this, so we won't use any names because you and I talked about this when we weren't recording. There is this whole thing that's become very big again with the get-rich-quick schemes and the guy on a plane with the girls with their boobs pushed up and showing you their Maseratis and Ferraris and their crib and all that kind of stuff. And I get that it's very seductive for people who are desperate. I really do. I understand that, and I have compassion for that. But that's not real. And it's also easy to see somebody who has all those things and think that person's better off than I am. And I really appreciate you sharing there, Adam. One of the gaps in your life, and we all have gaps. One of the gaps in your life is, I'm not as fulfilled as I'd like to be in relational. And that's important for people to understand, because here's the thing, we've got this concept that we can have it all. And I think to some degree we can, but not to the full extent. I'm very blessed. I've been with my wife for 20 years. My 19th wedding anniversary is coming up. The greatest decision of my life was asking her to marry me. I'm deliciously happy. She's an amazing, amazing, amazing woman. And every day I go to bed and I'm grateful, and every morning I wake up and I'm grateful for her and my life. But that doesn't mean that there are days when I'm working and I get lost in my work and I put in too many hours and all the rest of it. And I do love what I do, but it's like I pay that price. Mm-hmm. That's time that is away from my beloved, that is a little more than it should be. And this is the illusion that people have. They look at my life, at your life, and they go, it must be so great to be him with that life. And I want everybody to grasp, I don't care whose life you're looking at, right? Everybody has their shit to shovel. It's that simple. Everybody has got their own stuff to deal with. Nobody's life is perfect. And you just have to, for me, you have to come back to, what is your purpose? Why are you here? What is the meaning of what it is you're doing? And it has to be about something bigger, which is, again, back to what you were saying, and I think is so vital about it not being, yes, you've got to make profit. Yes, you got to have a profitable business, but it's got to be about something else as well. And the social entrepreneurship, which is wonderful, and helping people who come into your business and taking them on those journeys, I think that's pretty freaking amazing, because I'm sure a lot of those people never even cross their mind until you take them to Indonesia, into some village that you've helped to build and help to repair the eyes of people who were previously blind, and they go, "Oh, this is why I'm making money."
Yeah,
That's
Well, a lot of
really cool.
people, ironically, Dov, people are fundamentally good, and there's a lot of people out there that actually are not that inspired by having a Ferrari or a Porsche, but they don't know, they won't do it for themselves. But there were people who went on that trip with us who said, I've now found a reason to do this that's bigger than anything that I put on any goals list prior, is I want the feeling of knowing that my business funded, like that village, and this is a number that I want everyone to hear, especially entrepreneurs. That entire village, there was 4,000 free eye examinations done over 5 days, 2 surgeons, 400 blind healed,
Wow.
and 20 prosthetic eyes. That entire drive was 15,000 Australian dollars to pay for that. It's nothing. It's nothing for the impact. And we do that 3 times this year. So it's $45,000, which is nothing. I mean, everybody listening to this who has a business, if you can just say, okay, it's for $15,000 a year, if I can just do it once a year out of a business, I can, at the end of my business year, wake up and go, there's 400 Indonesians walking around today who have eyesight because of that $15,000 investment. I mean, is there a better way you could possibly spend 15 grand in your life? I mean, it's not a large amount of money.
Well,
it's a
very
low
often
number.
business people will spend 15 grand. And by that, I don't mean an extravagant, but 15 grand on a holiday without too much of a problem.
It's not much. It's not much for any kind of business, and for an extra 5 grand, you can fly up there with your wife and kids and actually experience with the airfares and the hotels. I mean, we stayed in a 4-star hotel in Bangawangi. It was $47 a night. We paid for the whole crew to go. It's not a lot of money, but the impact is spectacular. The return on that $15,000 is just so profound.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I'm really glad you're doing it. It's really important.
I share the number, Dog, because a lot of people are sitting there going, but how much does that cost? And they can't put their head around it. But
I think that a lot of people think, when I get big enough, I'll be able to do that. When we are a $20 million company, you don't need to be a $20 million company to put 15 grand in to making 400 people be able to see. Hello.
Oh, my God. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And that's so few businesses do it. When we went up there, we got off. The president of the Red Cross for Indonesia was there to welcome us. And, they were so happy to have that level of contribution. I'm like, this is such a small level of contribution. So anyway.
That's very inspiring, my friend. Thank you. Very inspiring. So let's go back into the other part of what you're doing, the business side of it. Amazon. It seems to be the new main street of business. And at the same time, again, I'm seeing stuff like this, people offering courses and trainings and all that. So it also seems to be a new bandwagon to jump on. What was the name of the other one? I just had it in my head. I'm sorry. Where people sold things online was the very. Oh God, it'll come to me in a minute. Cut sold as well. Never mind. Anyway, it'll come to me. But it was the thing to do is to now start selling stuff on Amazon. Is it a bandwagon? And if it is, how do people avoid the snake oil salesman?
So what we're seeing fundamentally here is, we've all witnessed Uber disrupt taxis. We've all witnessed Airbnb disrupt hotels. Well, Amazon's disrupting retail, one of the largest industries in the world. And all they've done is create a more efficient model for the consumer in the same way. So, huge tracts of money, sways of money are moving from brick and mortar to physical retail. And so there's this trend. As I say, the one thing these info marketers are right about, trend is your friend. So there's money moving. And entrepreneurship is about putting yourself in the way of the movement of money. So
say that again. I want people to get that. That's very important. Entrepreneurship is
about putting yourself in the way of the movement of money. I have this thing that I teach that so often I jokingly, a bit like your Gary Vee lies, in one of my trainings, I have a photo of Tony Robbins saying, this guy will fuck you up. And what I mean by that is I love Tony as well. But, if you approach success from this ultra masculine point of view, that it's all about you, and if you're not successful, it's because sometimes really good, smart people are just in a bad business or doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yep.
And then there's dumbasses in the world that are out there in the right place at the right time and getting rich despite themselves. So you have to be in the right place at the right time to truly make it a little easier, because it's really hard in business as it is. So you need to be where the momentum's happening. And the reason I got into teaching Amazon is because it's the only business I've ever owned that I honestly believe I can teach somebody else to do, because you don't need to build the website, you don't need to find the customer, and you don't have to do any of the technical stuff like setting up credit cards or anything. All the trust and traffic and customers are already at Amazon. Your job is simply to find products that those people want. And so that's actually teachable. But what I would consider the snake oil salesmen in our space teach is it's all about fancy headlines and keyword optimization and this ABC checklist that we can teach you and sell you for X amount of dollars. But it's actually very, very nuanced. Even students we've taught haven't really fully grasped what we're teaching them, because they haven't got a mind that's able to receive or formed yet. But, when people go to Amazon, you've really got to be thinking about how much do people care about what they're buying here right now? Are they buying just based on price? Or do they really, truly care? Like, for example, one of the things that we taught in one of our trainings recently was looking at wedding cake toppers on Amazon. And so wedding cake toppers, if you look them up, and there's a tool we use called Zonguru, it tells you how much money each of these products is selling per month. So you can actually see in advance. Right. And, there's people there making tens of thousands of dollars in months in sales of wedding cake toppers.
Tens of thousands of dollars a month selling little brides and grooms, and little grooms and grooms, brides and brides.
That sit on the top.
Oh, my God.
And I use this as an example because it's a simple product, but it's a product that people actually care about. If you're getting married and you're a young lady looking for this, usually it's going to be the lady that's into all the details without trying to be sexist, but they actually give a shit about what they're looking at. And for that reason, they're going to look 3, 4, 5 pages deep. And if it's $10 or $30, they don't care if it's the one they like.
Right. So
there's room for people to pay a premium for creativity. Now, when you look at the space, there's one brand that has done a little bit of humorous ones where the groom and the wife are standing together, and the wife has a hand on the groom's ass. Another one where they've got the back of their pants cut out, and just a little bit of humor. Right. And they sell really well. But if you pay close attention, there's none for gay couples. There's none for older people. There's none where you could put children around as well, like to create a family. There's none where the girl's in a short dress or taking a selfie, or there's almost no African Americans. There's almost no Asians. So you've got this. I mean, it's just like.
Well, let's face it: gay people, black people, Chinese people, they don't get married, obviously.
Right. Yeah, they don't get married ever, right? I mean, there's none of those in America. America's just white people.
Exactly. Well, so there are certain groups that would like it that way, but that is not the case.
It's not indicative of America at all.
Not at all.
These opportunities where they're just not taken care of. So that sort of thinking is just fundamental business thinking. What problem are you solving? Now, these courses don't teach that at all. They don't talk about, this just pragmatic approach to one of our successful students here in Australia. She's got a young kid. She only has a very limited time. She just launched on Amazon a month ago and is already netting about 70 grand a year income from her first product. And she said, what I did was I started with my customer in mind, had a very clear avatar for my who I wanted to sell to. And then I simply went to Amazon and looked at particular products and said, would my avatar buy that anything here? And if the answer was no, she would then go onto the internet and look around to find a product that her avatar would buy somewhere else. And then she went and got it made in China. And she went into a niche where every product on page one pretty much is doing between $70,000 and $150,000 a month in sales. And they're all just by huge companies with no heart and soul. She found this little product online that somebody else was selling. She got it made in China, put it onto Amazon, instant income for life, because there was nothing else like it. So visually differentiated, beautiful product. Most courses teach optimization and headlines and all this stuff that's just crap, instead of the fundamental reason people buy, which is a better, authentically better product with a specific avatar in mind.
And that they specifically care about. Again, again, this is what I really liked, Adam, was that what you're doing with your reliable education company is business. You're actually teaching people a business as opposed to how to make money. And I think that is the distinction that I really liked about in our conversation. As I said, there's the social entrepreneurship, there's the caring, there's the rejecting people who are coming in with credit cards. And then it's because this is a business. Mm-hmm. We're going to teach you a business. Now, I will understand that on the other side, there will be people who go, I don't want a business. I want to know how to make money now.
Yeah.
Right?
That's not our avatar.
They're not your avatar. Exactly. So it's interesting. That's my point, is that you have clearly defined your avatar, which allows the people you teach to know theirs. Because you look at me and go, you're our avatar. Yeah. You came in, you didn't borrow money to do the course. You have some money, you can buy product. You understand you're going to spend 2 to 3 years building this out before you start to make any real profit. Oh, yeah, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah. Our avatar is what we probably got one of the oldest groups, they're 35 to 55-year-olds is our avatar, and they're people that have been to the circus, seen the strings, they know bullshit when they hear it, and that's who we deal with. And the rest are just not for us, the people that want to follow, you look at Tai Lopez, for example, he's got a different avatar. He's marketing to kids who, a Ferrari equals success.
Don't forget the push-up bras.
What's that?
Don't forget the girls with the push-up bras.
The girls in the private jets and all that stuff. Whereas our avatars, many of them could actually buy a Ferrari, but they don't, because they've made their money over many years by investing in real estate and stocks, and they've held good jobs and have families, and they're just normal, real people,
That's fabulous. I believe that the most successful people are obsessed, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, I mean that in a very positive sense. It's that thing that we can't resist. It's if there's a conversation going on about it over there at the party, we've got to sort of migrate over there. If there's a movie and there's a part in the movie about it, we've got to go. That's the part we talk about. What is your obsession? What are you obsessed with,
Adam? Right now, in a business context, I'm obsessed with trying to teach this nuance of good business in Amazon. That's something that I'm really authentically trying to solve to a large group of people, is teach them how to think in order to best set them up for success. And just on those nuanced things like what we just talked about, learning to identify products that people are emotionally vested in buying, teaching them how to differentiate so that when people look at Amazon, you could pick my student out of a lineup. If you were to print off all the products on page 1 for the category they're in, and my student's product is in that lineup, you could spot it instantly because you can see it's the only one that's visually differentiated, looks like somebody loved while they were making it. So I'm obsessed with that at the moment, and bringing a new standard to this information selling business, and resetting people's expectations of what they should receive in exchange for a $2,000 or $3,000 course online. So we're doing stuff in our business that people told us would never do. Like we have a 3-day summit that we only open to our students. We do it twice a year, and at that summit we sell our high-end coaching, and everybody said to us, you can't charge for that event. It has to be free because you've got to get as many people in there so you've got the maximum chance of selling your high-ticket item. That's what people were not only telling us, but were charging for. We said, well, we don't think that's fair exchange. We're not selling in this event other than the program we're going to offer, and even that we're not going to sell. We're just going to say, here it is if you want it, put in application. But I'm not going to get on stage and spend $100,000 on a 3-day event for free, and that doesn't work. Whereas if I charge a ticket price, even if we don't sell any of the high-end coaching, we're not out of pocket. So we put a ticket price on it of $300, and it's sold out in advance every time. Just doing things, because it takes the pressure off us having to sell it all, because it's a break-even deal. We feed everybody when they come. So tickets $300, but we put lunch on every day, tea and coffee in the morning. We treat them like human beings, and we say, if you don't spend $300, have 3 days. Fair exchange, because it went too far the other way. And there was in Australia, we had these multi-speaker events where they were free to attend, and they would put 10 speakers on who were all had to sell in order to get paid. And
selfish.
burned the industry,
Yeah.
and they give away a DVD player at the start of each session to make sure people were in the room. And I'm just like, this is just so bad, like for just not treating people like dickheads. How about just give them really, really good, authentic content, and if they want to buy, they'll buy.
Yeah, I have exactly the same challenge as a speaker. As you know, I speak internationally, and I'm often asked to speak on those stages, and I say absolutely not. And they go, why? I say, I offer quality content. I'm not there to pitch. I'm not going to pitch. If somebody wants to buy from me, they can come talk to me, and I'm happy to offer them something else. But to stand up there and be part of that pitch fest, I know how annoyed I am in the audience. That I'm 10 minutes into this talk going, oh yeah, I can already see where this is going. And I can see the credit cards of the desperate coming out. I often said that, it's the tide of the desperate. And it's very sad. It is. It's very sad.
Conversion rates just go through the floor, and it's just all geared up wrong.
Yeah,
instead of just Anyway, it's all changing. It's good.
When you, I know you've been doing a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows, a lot of things, and sometimes on those shows they'll ask you, what is the best advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self? I like to do things non-conventionally, as you've noticed, and so here's what I want to know is. What if you were going forward in time and your 70-year-old self was giving you advice? What do you think your 70-year-old self would be saying to this Adam?
Yeah. So right now, I think he'd be pretty happy with the way I'm tracking. But there's been very few years in my life where he would be happy. But the last 2 or 3, he'd be going, mate, you're doing pretty good. I think he would say, make sure that you slow down and just smell the roses a little more. That's what my mum used to say to me all the time. She'd say, Adam, just make sure you pause and smell the roses. So I think that would be basically it. Just like, believe in people. And one of my favorite things to say to people is, I believe in you. I think it's some of the most powerful words people in need can hear. So he would say, don't lose faith in people. Always lead from your heart. And make sure you slow down enough to smell the roses, because no matter where we are, in the Western world, we are insanely blessed. Like, we are buried in abundance, and just remember that, because it'll bring so much more happiness to your day. I sort of say to people that happiness is the unavoidable consequence of gratitude, and if you just pause and breathe and think about the many blessings you have, even on your worst day, in fact, in particular on your worst day, you'll get back to happiness pretty quick. And after it's like a muscle. Like now, I find happiness pretty easily.
That's awesome. So, Adam, I want to thank you for being here with us. It was really great having you here. And as I said, when we pre-chatted, I thought. The beginning, I thought, is this going to be a fit? And it's been a great show. And, because I think and the reason I think it's been a great show is because it's an example of leadership moving forward. I'd love to have talked more about Amazon drones and the future of retail and all those, because it's a fascinating subject. But the leadership side of this and what you're doing in the leadership side of this, I think is vitally important. And I think there's a lesson in it for all of us, whether you're a corporate CEO, whether you're a C-suite leader, whether you're a sales leader, or whether you're just a high-level entrepreneur. There's some really great takeaways here, and I really hope that those people who are listening and seeing will take notes, pay attention, and I want to encourage them to reach out to you, get in touch with you, and tell you what they got out of the show, and maybe get some more guidance from you. Can you tell people where they can find out more about you and what it is you do, please?
Sure. You can just go to www.reliable.education. So there's no .com or anything. It's just reliable.education. Or if they want to email me, if they're a listener of your show, just adam@reliable.education. That goes right to me. It doesn't go to a PA or anything. If there's anything I can help you with or connect you with the John Fawcett Foundation that we work with in Indonesia, anything I can do to help, I'd be happy to do that. And it's been a real pleasure being here. I've really enjoyed it, Dov. It's nice to. What I love about your show is, you talk about stuff that's just a little bit deeper, and I really value that and appreciate it. So thank you for making the time, because I know it's not easy for someone from our industry to get onto your show. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been an honor and a pleasure. It really has. So thank you. And again, I want to encourage everybody to reach out to you. And for everybody else, I appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate you sharing the show with everybody you know. As always, I tell you, please don't just listen to the show. Don't just watch the show. Listen back. Take notes. I promise you, you missed a ton. Go back, listen again, and then put it into action. It's vital. Vital. And remember, the research consistently shows that the biggest challenge facing some of the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive. The fastest growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending an absolute fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, only to have them leave them at just an alarming rate of turnover. So if you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only to have them leave you before you get the ROI, reach out to talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com. We provide you the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets of your organization by tapping into your purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Well, because you can't outsource authenticity. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how you can do a little better by being a little better and giving a little more and staying in gratitude. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I'm out.